This lecture will cover section 2.2 circles. Make sure you've gone into Canvas and printed these notes out, and you can follow along with me as I go through the lecture material. If you'd like to, you could pause the video now and go print the notes and come back. Alright, as was mentioned, this section is on circles. So what we're going to do is look at the equation of circles, how to write the equation, how to gain information from the equation, and then how to graph a circle. Alright, so first we're going to look at the center radius form of the equation of a circle. Now, the title of this equation gives us a good indication of what information we can gain from this equation. Alright, the center radius form tells us we can get the center and the radius of our circle just from the equation. Alright, the equation is in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now from this, here, the h and the k, those two values right there are the center of our circle. Notice it is a coordinate, like an x, y value. hk comes from here. Alright? Then the radius of the circle is r. In our equation, notice r squared. So the way we could get the radius of the circle is simply by taking the square root of this value. Alright, a circle that has a center at 0, 0 and a radius of r, its equation will look like this: x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Because x minus 0 is just x, then when you square x you get x squared. And then y minus 0 would just give you y. Square it, you get y squared. So when you see just an x squared or just a y squared, know that that x or h value was 0. Here the k value was 0. Alright, so let's take a look and apply this information. Alright, so the first thing says we want to write the equation of a circle with the center at 1, -2, and it has a radius of 3. And then we're going to graph that circle. Alright, so what we're going to do is take this information. Here's our h, and here's our k, and then this is our r. And we simply fill in these three pieces of information back into the center radius form. Alright, so I'm going to pull this down a little bit. So we're going to say x minus 1 squared plus y minus -2 squared equals 3 squared. Alright, so I simply filled in the h, the k, and the r. Alright, so then we have x minus 1 squared plus, alright, here we have minus a negative becomes y plus 2 squared, and then 3 squared is 9. So the equation of our circle would be x minus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 9. Alright, then to graph the equation, I need the center and the radius. And so they've already told us that information was 1, -2 is the center, 3 is the radius. Now remember, the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the outer edge of the circle. Alright, the easiest way to graph the circle is first to graph the center. So I'm going to graph 1, -2. So I'm going to go right 1 and down 2. This is going to be the center of my circle. Alright, to get the actual circle from the center, I'm going to count 3 to the right. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to count up 3. 1, 2, 3. Because remember, the radius, the distance from the center to the outer edge of the circle. Then from the center, I'm going to count left. 1, 2, 3. And from the center, I'm going to count down. 1, 2, 3. Alright, then do your best to connect the 4 points to make them look like a circle. Alright, sometimes it's a little difficult to get that arch in there. Alright, and that would be our circle. Alright, let's take a look at the next one. Alright, it says write the equation of a circle with the center at 0, 0 and a radius of 2. Alright, we already found out that a circle that has a center of 0, 0, alright, up here, it said the equation would be x squared plus y squared, and then we simply square the radius. And here's why that is. I explained it a little bit, but I'll show you here. Alright, so here's our h, and here's our k, here's our r. So if I fill in x minus 0 and I square it, then I fill in y minus my k and I square it, and then my radius is 2 and I square it. Alright, then x minus 0 I know is simply x. And y minus 0 or y minus nothing just leaves me a y. And then x squared would be x squared. Y squared would be y squared. And then we already know 2 squared is 4. So here would be the equation of my circle with center at 0, 0, radius of 2. Then to graph my circle, I go to the origin. Alright, and this is where my center is located at 0, 0. And then from there, I'm going to go right 2, up 2, left 2, and down 2. All of those from the center of the circle. And then I'm going to connect my dots, making a circle. Okay, let's look at the next one. Alright, the next one asks us to write the equation of a circle with the center at 2, 0, radius of 5. Alright, so once again my center is h, k, and here's my r. Alright, so we're going to say x minus h squared and y minus k squared equals 5 squared. Alright, I don't know what x is, so I don't know what x minus 2 would be, so it's just going to stay x minus 2 squared. Y minus 0 we know is a y, and then we have 5 squared. Alright, then x minus 2 squared plus y squared equals 25. So here would be the equation of my circle at a center of 2, 0, radius of 5. Then to graph that, I'm going to graph my center first. So I'm going to go right 2, and I'm not going to go up or down any, because that's what the 0 means. Alright, and then I'm going to go from the center, I'm going to go right 5, up 5, left 5, down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then those 4 outer dots I'm going to connect to make them look like a circle, somewhat like a circle. No artist. Alright, whenever you're using MyMathLab, it of course will make a much better looking circle than I can, and for those artists out there, I'm sure your circle will look lovely also. Alright, so now we know how to take the center and the radius and write the equation of the circle. Alright, now let's look at an equation and see if we can figure out what the center and the radius are. Alright, so we have an equation here. It asks us to decide whether or not this is the equation of a circle. Alright, and when you look at it, it's not in center radius form. So what we want to do is find a way to put it in center radius form so that we can determine if it is a circle. Alright, so the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to complete the square 2 times. So notice we have some quadratics on here. X squared plus 4x, y squared minus 8y minus 44. Alright, so what we're going to do, just like in completing the square, the constant, we're going to move it over to the other side. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x, I'm going to leave a little space there, plus y squared minus 8y, I'm going to leave a little space there, equals 44. So this is like doing completing the square twice. We have x squared plus 4x we're going to complete the square with, and then we have y squared minus 8y we're going to complete the square with. Alright, so that remember when you're completing the square, you move the constant over to the right. Alright, and then we're going to work with the x's first. So in completing the square, remember you take the b, that's the number that's in front of the x, which in this case is 4, and we're going to divide it by 2. That gives us 2. And then we square that value, and that gives us 4. And then what we do is we add that to both sides. So I'm going to say plus 4 here, and plus 4 here. Alright, then I'm going to do this exact same thing with the y's. So I have y squared minus 8y. I'm going to take the negative 8, divide it by 2, that'll give me negative 4. And then what I'm going to do is square it. Negative 4 squared would give me 16. So then I'm going to say plus 16 on both sides. Alright, now what we need to do is factor the two quadratics. Alright, so when I factor x squared plus 4x plus 4, since we completed the square, this should now be a perfect square trinomial, both of these, which we know factors into a binomial times itself. The good thing about this, or the easy part about this I should say, is that whenever I take half of this b, alright, that's the value that should go right there. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. Alright, and if I took x plus 2 and I multiplied it times itself, I would get x squared plus 4x plus 4. Alright, and we're going to do the same thing with the y's. So we have y minus, half of that 8 was 4. Alright, it was a negative 4. Alright, and if I say y minus 4 times itself, I should get y squared minus 8y plus 16. Alright, so this should be starting to look something familiar to that center radius form we just talked about. Alright, and then I'm going to add these together. 44 plus 4 is 48, plus another 16 would give us 64. Alright, so now when I look at what I have x plus an h, y minus a k equals possibly an r squared. Now remember the formula says x minus h and y minus k. So if our value says x plus some number or y plus some number, then that number must be negative, alright, because it's got to fit in that formula. Alright, so what would be the only way I could get x plus 2 would be x. The formula says subtract. That would be negative 2, right? And then here we're already subtracting, so we're good. Alright, you don't have to rewrite this like this, but I just want to show you that if it's a plus, alright, your h would be negative 2. Your k would be 4, so it's kind of like you're always using the opposite sign. And then our r is going to be the square root of 64, which is 8. So our center is going to be at negative 2, 4, and our radius is going to be an 8. So we can say this is the graph of a circle with the center at negative 2, 4, and radius at 8. Alright, we're going to do the same thing for this one. Alright, notice that the constant has already been moved over. The x's and the y's are not together, so I'm going to go ahead and put them together, the x squared and the 8x, and the y squared and the negative 6y. So x squared plus 8x, leave a little space, plus y squared minus 6y, leave a little space, equals negative 16. Half of 8 is 4. Then we're going to square it and get 16, so I'm going to add 16 here, add 16 here. Then when I factor this, I should get x plus 4 squared. Alright, now we're going to do with the y's. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. When I square it, I get 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. That should give me y minus 3 squared. Then negative 16 plus 9 equals 9. That'll give me a center at negative 4, 3. Radius equals 3.